This is reading an architectural scale of 1/2 of an inch equals a foot and 1 inch equals a foot. So we're seeing a side of the architectural scale represented here, and on one side we have the 1/2 and 1 inch, and on the same side but on the other edge is the 1/8 and 1/4. We will take a look at the 1/8 and 1/4 in another video. On the 1/2 and 1 inch, you'll see that there are a section on both sides that has smaller tick marks to measure. Those are the areas that we're going to measure the number of inches, or less than a foot, that we have left over. And then the area in between those two sections are where we're going to measure whole feet. You'll see that there are two different types of numbers. There's smaller numbers that are on the lower end, and then there's bigger numbers up above. Each scale has its own set of numbers that it's referencing. So you can see that the 0, the 3, the 6, and the 9 line up with the 1, 2, 3 up above that are the larger font. On the opposite side, you'll see that the 0, that's showing where the 0 inches are, or 0 feet are on the 1/2 inch scale, is the same size as the 2, 4, 6, that's the lower and smaller font. If I want to read whole feet from this scale, I would look at the smaller numbers and figure out the in-between. So for instance, if this is 0 feet and this is 2 feet, then this must be 1 foot. If I'm reading the scale from the opposite direction, I can see that I have 0 feet here, 1 whole foot, 2 whole feet. So the numbers in between here and here really should be ignored because those are representing 1/2 a foot from that side, or 6 inches. Now let's take a closer look at the section that we're going to use to measure inches with. So because this is 1 inch equals a foot scale, what we're looking at here is a representation of a foot as it fills in 1 inch length. So instead of dividing this 1 inch into 1/16ths, or halves or quarters, this 1 inch has been divided into 12 equal segments, plus further in order to add, measure fractions. So we have the 0 inch mark here, and this is representing the 12 inch mark, or 1 whole foot. So in between we have 3 showing up 1, 2, 3 lines from the 0, 6, which is the 1/2 a foot mark, 9, and 12. Now in between the inch being represented here, we have 3 more tick marks, which means that this must be 1/2 an inch, and these 2 tick marks must be representing 1/4 of an inch. So we have 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, and then 1 whole inch. And that's how we read that side of the scale. So we can say that with the 1 inch equals a foot scale, I have the ability to measure within 1/4 of an inch precision using that scale. On the opposite side, the 1 foot has been divided a little differently, mostly based on the amount of room we have. So this is now 1/2 an inch is equal to 1 foot. So this is 0. This is the 12 inch mark. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 inches. And in between the inch marks, we have another mark, which has to be 1/2 an inch. So with the 1/2 an inch equals a foot scale, I can measure 1/2 an inch precision. Let's see how we would read then this scale here, this first scale. So this is how I would do this. Starting from the 0, I would read how many whole feet that we have until we reach the end of the other dimension. So I can see I've got 2, 4, 6, 7 whole feet. So I would write that part down. 7 foot mark and then a dash to separate your feet in inches. Next, we're going to see how many inches are left over. So this is where I've got to look at this section and see how many of these tick marks past the 0 have I gone past. And it looks like I've hit just one tick mark, or the 1/2 inch mark. So I would write down 7 feet dash 0 and then the 1/2 inch fraction. And that's the correct way to read that scale. Let's take a look at the next one. With this next one, I'm going to show you how you would line up your dimension. So the first thing that you'd want to do is take this extension line on the beginning of the dimension and line it up with the 0. And when you do that, you're going to look at the other end of the object that you're measuring and see, does it hit a whole foot mark? In this case, it does not. So what we have to do is move that whole dimension back until that second extension line hits a whole foot mark. And then what it does is it shows you how many inches are left over in doing that. So we can see that we have 6 whole feet. And if we zoom in on the inches, we've got 2 whole inches plus a 1/2 inch. So the answer would be 6 feet, then we put a dash, 2 and a 1/2 inches. Let's take a look at the last one on that side. We have 12 whole feet. And we look at how many inches are left over. We have 6 inches here, we know. So it's right in between the 0 and the 12, so that's always going to be 6 inches. And I've got 1 inch past that 6 inch mark. So this should be 12 feet, 7 inches. All right, let's take a look now at the 1 inch. And I'm going to let you take a stab at the first dimension. Using the same system, we just have a slightly different precision. Remember that I can measure to within 1/4 of an inch rather than just a 1/2 on the other scale. So take a look at how many whole feet we have, and then take a look at how many inches are left over, and then fractions of an inch. The correct answer for this would be 2 whole feet, 2 feet dash 3 inches, and then we've got 1/4 of an inch. This would be 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, and then we're at the 4 inch mark. So 2 feet, 3 1/4 inches. How about the next one? Hopefully you got 3 feet 7 3/4 of an inch. So we can see that we're hitting the 3 foot mark here. If we zoom in on this inch section, there's 7 inches, 1/4, 1/2, 3/4. Last one, take a look at how many whole feet, how many inches left over. Four whole feet. This is the 9 inch mark, so that must be 10. And then we're halfway between 10 and 11. So 4 feet, 10 1/2 inches.